Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
I woke up in a hospital bed, disoriented and unsure of how I had ended up there. Pain radiated from my right arm, shoulder, and left side, and my entire body ached. My name is Henry Colton, and I was 41 years old when I found myself in this tangled situation. As my surroundings began to come into focus, I tried to piece together the events that had landed me here. Growing up, my life revolved around the pursuit of financial stability. My family didn't have much, but it wasn't until high school that I realized just how little we actually had. The absence of even the simplest luxuries became glaringly obvious. By the time I was 14, I had taken it upon myself to cover my own expenses, clothes, school supplies, and anything extra I wanted. I hustled constantly, taking on any job I could find. For 2 summers, I worked on the back of a gypsy garbage truck. I also cleaned classrooms after school, washed dishes at a local diner, and eventually saved up enough money to buy my own car and pay for its insurance once I got my license. Money mattered to me, but I wasn't frivolous with it. I treated myself occasionally to small indulgences, a burger, a candy bar, but only sparingly and never without thought. I was a very good student and had received many full scholarships offers. I chose the University of Michigan and graduated with dual degrees in electrical engineering and electronic design. I invented and patented an improved miniature microphone, a very small video camera, and several different sound and motion detector alarms. I licensed some of those patents, and with the money, I started a security equipment manufacturing company. I met Clara Wesley at a company function where my company hosted our customers and potential customers. I was and am founder and COO of Hardwired Security Incorporated, a small but significant home security company. We do not actually wire or monitor homes, but we invent, design, and produce the gadgets needed. In spite of our name, most of our products were Wi-Fi and Bluetooth compatible and had battery backup so they would continue to work if the power failed for any reason. I was making a decent salary when I met Clara, but it wasn't in the stratosphere because I was rolling 90% of the after-expenses profit back into the company. I was still very well paid for a 26-year-old electronics geek of that time. Clara was with her boss Walter Williams, the purchasing agent for Williams Home Safety Company. His daddy was the big cheese, but Walter and I had a good professional relationship. He was all business when it was about business. When not doing business, he was an all-out skirt chaser. He was a couple of years older than me, but was on wife number 3. He introduced his assistant Clara to me. Then he introduced me to her. Of course, he had to add that I was COO, shareholder, and single. Clara took on an almost acquisitive look as she tried to make small talk. I dismissed her interest immediately by saying, "What Walter said is true, but what he failed to say is that I only get a salary that is just a little more than what my highest paid engineer gets. I am not rich by any means, just lucky with some of my inventions. I also have some of the smartest electronics geeks in the country working for my company." She stared at me for a few seconds and then said, "I'm sorry. My surprise at your age overcame my polite upbringing. I was just very impressed that someone our age was able to own and run such an important company. Our company uses more products from your plants than all of the other suppliers combined." We talked business for a few more minutes, and I excused myself to mingle with the guests. I spent about 25 minutes walking around and talking to the various people before the food and soft drinks were brought out and the buffet was set up. As my guests were getting their food and drinks, I watched and saw Clara had kept moving to the rear of the line. At the same time, she was sideways watching me. If I had thought about it, I would have realized that she was stalking me to get close. I did not have a lot of experience with women, as I was mostly a nose-to-the-grindstone person. Clara saw her target, and I never knew what the license number of the truck that was Clara Wesley. I didn't call her. She called me. Where she got my personal phone number from, I never did find out. We dated for more than a year, and she was getting more aggressive. It was putting me off, so I told her that I didn't want to see her outside of business anymore. Well, that worked for about 2 months, and then she started to show up wherever I was when not at work. She joined my church. She managed to get invited to family dinners, even though I never introduced her to my family. It was so bad I told my parents that if she was at another family function, it would be the last one I was at. Well, that seemed to cool her pursuit off. But when she wasn't around, I felt something was missing. I knew what it was, but I wasn't about to start up with her again without some serious and unbreakable ground rules. After about 3 months, I called Clara and we talked. She was pleasant, but told me she was glad she wasn't seeing me anymore because she started dating Walter. I had heard that he had gotten dumped by Mrs. Matthews number 3. It seems, at least according to Clara, that Walter was not the one she wanted. Well, so much for new ground rules. I ended the call. I then took stock of my life. I decided to cut back on the 60-hour work weeks, the 7-day work weeks, and the obsession of work. It took about a month of normal work weeks when I discovered that I had a lot more energy and I was better focused at work. The most important improvement I made was I was able to leave work at the office. With my new time and energy, I decided to take dance lessons. I always envied the guys who never seemed to be off their feet at weddings and dances that I attended. It was enlightening and fun, as well as ego-boosting. I discovered a love of country dances, especially line dances. I also started to go out to a little country music dance hall that was on the edge of town. The dance floor would be crowded if more than 8 couples were on it, but when line dances were called, we made 3 rows, and the inside row alternated face one of the outside rows. It was great fun. Then about 6 months after the phone call, I was at a cousin's wedding, and Clara was there with a different guy. Apparently, Walter was no more. As I was part of the wedding party, there was no way Clara could not miss the fact that I was there. She left her date and asked to talk to me. I was a little dubious, but I also never disliked her, just her tactics. I told her she had to introduce me to her date, and I would ask him to excuse us for about 15 minutes. She agreed. She did. He didn't, and left the reception without her. We talked and danced for the rest of the party. I took her home and left before she could invite me in. I was afraid to start something up again. Well, about 3 days later, I got a letter from her at my office. Henry, I know that I messed up before by being too aggressive. I would like to start dating you again. I will do my best to let us proceed at a rate of intimacy that you are comfortable with. I know that I told you that Mrs. Walter III told him he was not the one. I was the real reason they broke up. She caught us at a motel when he was supposedly at a business conference in Seattle. His dad fired him and removed him from all of the ownership of the company. His younger brother Tom will now be the heir apparent. I know I have come across as aggressive. I apologize for that. I like you, and I was pushing for more because I think I was beginning to love you. To put your mind at ease, I will not pursue you after you read this letter. That does not mean that I don't hope you will call me to go out together again. Clara. Well, I thought about it for 3 months, and on a Wednesday, I called and asked her to dinner for the coming Friday. I thought that would be a good restarting point. It was. We started dating, and after about 6 weeks we were sexual intimate. That woman knew more ways to screw than I ever heard or read about. I thought guys were 60-second wonders. Clara was just what a fragile romantic ego like I had needed. We dated for about a year, and I asked her to marry me. She jumped into my arms and chanted yes, yes, yes. We were planning the wedding when my mother strongly recommended that I should protect my assets with a prenuptial agreement. I had my attorney drew up an agreement that made sure that my trust would not be vulnerable in case of a divorce. He also recommended that I place all of the patents in the ownership of the trust. That would mean that the income from them would also be protected. Well, I was surprised that Clara did not make a fuss about the prenup. She did take it to her attorney and then signed with only one change. She and her attorney added a strict adultery clause. I signed the addendum. The wedding was small, but the reception was almost a circus. Most of the people from my company and from Williams Home Security were there. As it was a warm Saturday afternoon, and we had rented a pavilion and grounds from a local church camp, it was a mob scene, but all in all, very well-behaved mob. Clara was mingling with our guests when I saw Walter take hold of her arm and try to lead her away. He must have sensed that I was watching because he started to look around for me. As soon as he saw me, he let go of her arm as if it was on fire. I headed over toward them, as Clara had not seen Walter's face. I only caught the last words from Clara. I told you we were done when you cheated on me. I love my husband, and I never want to be near you again. Walter took off, and a few minutes later, I saw his car driving off. At the time, I was extremely angry with a man I thought was my friend. He was hitting on my wife on my wedding day for crying out loud. I was pleasantly surprised when Clara filed a sexual harassment complaint against Walter. It didn't go anywhere, because the complaint cited the reception as when and where it happened and Walter no longer worked for the company. Clara quit, and we basically blew the incident off as out of our control. Clara found a new job, as my administrative assistant. My past assistant moved to a different state to be with her new chump of the month, and she didn't even pick up her last paycheck. I was almost 30 when we married, and Clara wanted to start a family. I was 33 when Sam was born, and I was a proud papa. Clara decided to be a full-time mom, and while we tried for the next 4 years, we never had another child. I had a vasectomy when we had been married for 6 years, and so there would be no more kids. Clara went back to work when Sam started 2nd grade. She found a job with a local company as an administrative assistant to the plant manager. Things were great until 6 months or so before I woke up in the hospital. Clara had started making snide little digs about me, not getting my share of the profits from the company. That bitching stopped when I started to present her with bills for half of the monthly expenses. Half was more than her entire take-home pay. Then she started to withhold any affection. No hugs, no kisses, and definitely no sex. I moved into the guest room. Then came the clincher. I overheard her talking on her phone to someone named Thomas. I can't yet. I needed to figure a way to get him to divorce me or die. I don't want him to die, but if he did, I would have it all instead of the half I would get in a divorce. Anyway, I can't do anything with you away from work until either of those happen. Then she turned around and saw me. She immediately ended the call and looked extremely guilty. The only Thomas the First knew was a department manager at the plant. I didn't say anything at the time because Sam was near. After he went to bed, I grabbed Clara, not too gently, by the arm and dragged her into the living room. I didn't say anything about the phone call. I just started by saying, I know and you know that you have been a cold and heartless bitch for almost 6 months. I am telling you right now that it stops. If I want sex, you will drop your panties immediately and grab your ankles. If I insist, you will contribute to the family finances up to 75% of your take-home. If you make one more uncalled for snide remark or insult, you are out the door. Do you understand? By the time I finished, I was shouting. I was in control, and my rage was tamped down, but I needed to sound outraged. Clara looked at me like I had grown horns. She started to say something, but I interrupted her. One more insult, angry tirade against me, or a denial of sex and you are gone. My company owns this house, and I will burn it to the ground before you can get it in a divorce. Is a divorce what you want? She just crumbled off the couch and laid on the floor crying. I got up and went into the guest room and started moving my stuff back in the master. Clara was still on the floor when I was done, but she had fallen asleep. I covered her up and went to bed, locking the bedroom door. The next day after Clara went to work, I placed bugs all through the house and had her car bugged by one of my techs. We manufactured the security equipment, but we also knew how and where to use it. That night, a very contrite Clara came home from work and made dinner for the first time in over a month. She also gave me a look of almost respect, tinged with fear. I didn't want fear. I wanted my loving wife back. It was not to be. I had a few more plans up my sleeve. I stayed up after she went to bed and loaded her phone with the recorder app so all of her calls were recorded and cloned to me. I went to bed and a tearful Clara asked if I wanted to make love. I told her no, very abruptly. She rolled away from me and started to silently cry. I didn't ever make love to her again. Well, Thomas was quite the naughty boy. He called Clara on her cell while they were both working, and the two of them talked of finding a way to get my money in my company. The plot suggestion started out bizarre, and gradually over a 2-week period got down to some serious planning. I was going to be killed in a mugging, and the mugging was going to look like random street violence. I hadn't been idle while this was going on. I moved all of our bank money and contents of the safe deposit box to a different bank with only my signature on it. I changed the beneficiary of my insurance policy to Sam with the proceeds to be held in trust until he started college or turned 21. I changed the beneficiary of the trust to Sam with the same provision and restrictions. Then I did something that saved my life. I bought the best undershirt body armor that was on the market. It was not just designed to reduce the chance of dying from a gunshot wound to the torso, but also was designed to protect against knife wounds. My purchase of the body armor was noticed by the police, and a detective showed up at my work and questioned me about my reason. I played the recording of the plan for him, and he told me I had a good reason. Then he said, "We really can't do anything about the plot because we can't use the evidence you have collected. That being said, we will keep a watch on you during your drives to work and back. I know that isn't much help, but it is all we can legally do until an attempt is made." So, 3 days after the detective's visit, I hear him in the hospital. The vest prevented the bullets from killing me, but I did receive 2 broken ribs, and when I fell down, I managed to break my ankle and knock myself out. I did take a bullet in the arm. My police escort caught Thomas Grayson as he was trying to flee the scene. When they interrogated him, he couldn't wait to give up Clara. It seems that they had been approached by Walter Williams about buying my company. He knew about their affair, and they were offered a price they didn't ignore. All 3 of them were arrested while I lay unconscious in the hospital. Each was held on a $2.5 million bond, an amount none of them could manage to post. Once I was discharged, I made some big changes. I sold my company but held on to the patents, ensuring my hard work wouldn't go to waste. Sam and I relocated to Alabama, where I filed for divorce from Clara. Because her actions were part of a criminal plot to claim my estate, she walked away with nothing. The trio of conspirators was found guilty of attempted murder and received lengthy prison sentences. Justice was served, but the experience left its scars. Sam, with the energy and optimism of youth, is determined to play matchmaker, constantly trying to set me up with the single moms of his friends. But for now, I'm not ready to re-enter the world of dating or romance. I've started fresh with a new career, working as a systems installer and supervisor for a statewide home security company. It's fulfilling, and I'm excited to tinker with some ideas for new gadgets. Life goes on, and so do I. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.